Today I'm making this 1 hour no-knead English muffin bread. Look how good it looks. Welcome y'all to Robin on the Farm. Today I'm making English muffin bread, and this bread is so good and so easy. It's a no-knead bread that's ready in about 1 hour. So it's super fast, super simple. It's kind of like a batter bread. You just mix up all your ingredients, pour it into the loaf pan, let it rise for a little bit, and bake it, and that is it. So it's way easy, and I know you're gonna love this bread. So give this recipe a try and let me know how much you love it. So let's just get started. I'm gonna start with 1 1/3 cups of warm milk. You want this to be about 100 to 110 degrees, so lukewarm milk. I pop this in the microwave for about a minute. So just put that right on into your bowl. Now I'm just gonna mix this up by hand. This is not a bread that I'd recommend using a bread machine or a mixer for. You just wanna put it in a bowl, mix it up by hand, throw it into your loaf pan and bake it. It's that easy. Okay, after our milk, we're gonna use some sugar. So I'm gonna use 2 teaspoons of this white sugar, but you can also use honey if you'd rather do that, monk fruit, maple syrup, whatever you wanna use. But I'm going the easy route and I'm just using 2 teaspoons of white sugar. Next, we want some yeast. I'm gonna use this Saf instant yeast. I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of this yeast, but you can also use active dry yeast. I make this bread with instant yeast or active dry and it turns out the same. So you can use either one you want. But 1 tablespoon and just sprinkle that right on top of your milk and your sugar. And next we want some flour. Now for this recipe, I just use all-purpose flour. I don't use bread flour, I don't use self-rising flour, just some plain old all-purpose flour. And you're gonna want 2 cups. Now down in the description, I'm gonna leave the printable recipe for this English muffin bread, and I will leave the recipe in cups, and I'll also leave it in grams if you like to bake better that way. But 2 cups right on into your bowl. Now we want some baking soda. So I'm gonna use a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Not baking powder, baking soda. It does make a difference in this recipe. So a 1/4 teaspoon right on into your bowl with everything else. And last we want some salt. So I'm gonna use 1 teaspoon of salt. I love baking with this Redmond's real salt. You can also use white iodized table salt, kosher salt, the pink Himalayan sea salt, anything that you want like that. But this is North American ancient fine sea salt. So I like this. So I'm gonna use 1 teaspoon. Now definitely pour it not over your bowl in case you over pour it. But 1 teaspoon, it's a really pretty pink color. Just pour it right on into your bowl with everything else. And now we have all of our ingredients for our English muffin bread in the mixing bowl already. Now I'm gonna use my Danish dough whisk because I love mixing doughs with this whisk. But you're just gonna give it a good whisk and let it get all mixed together. You don't want any dry patches of flour or anything like that. Now this dough is gonna be more like a batter. It's definitely gonna be very, very wet and runny and soupy, and that is exactly what you want for this English muffin bread. I wanted to be sure that you could see this dough really well. It definitely is more of a batter. Do you see how wet and sticky this is? It is just a mess. This is not normally what you want your bread batter or your bread dough to look like, but for this English muffin bread, this is exactly what you want it to look like. So definitely don't be tempted to add more flour to this, or your bread is gonna turn out too dense and you won't get those nooks and those crannies that you want from an English muffin or English muffin bread. So this is exactly what you want. For this English muffin bread, I'm gonna put my batter into my cast iron loaf pan. This is one of my 8.5 by 4.5 inch cast iron loaf pans. I love these bread loaf pans. They bake everything so evenly and so well. There's none of those coatings to get into our food, so I love that. Now I pour about a tablespoon of oil into my loaf pan and I just spread it all over with a paper towel. And so it's nice and shiny in there and it's ready for the batter to go in and it will not stick at all. Now, for this English muffin bread, I love to sprinkle a little bit of cornmeal into my loaf pan. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of this fresh milled corn and just sprinkle it into this loaf pan because this just really makes it that much more like a real traditional English muffin. So there it is. There is my fresh milled cornmeal. This is kind of fun. I just milled it up in my Nutri-Mill wheat grinder, but you can definitely use just some store-bought cornmeal. But I definitely recommend it because it's gonna make this bread seem that much more like an English muffin. Now that I have my loaf pan all prepared, Now I'm gonna take my batter and I'm just gonna pour it into my loaf pan. Now that I have all of the batter into the loaf pan, now I'm just gonna smooth it out a little bit just to make it even all the way across. And now I'm gonna take a little bit more of my cornmeal and I'm just gonna sprinkle it on top. I like the cornmeal with this English muffin bread, that's for sure. All right, so that looks good. Now I'm gonna let this rise in the loaf pan for 30 minutes. And in about 30 minutes, it should be risen to about the top of the loaf pan, and then I'm gonna throw it in the oven to bake. But in just a few minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and get my oven preheated to 400 degrees so that when this is risen, I can just throw it on into the oven. I'll show it to you then. My English muffin bread has been rising in the bread loaf pan for 30 minutes. You see how it's just peeking over the side of the bread loaf pan. That looks perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in the oven. I'm gonna put this in the oven at 400 degrees and let it bake for about 20 to 25 minutes. And I'll show it to you when it's ready. Look at this gorgeous loaf of English muffin bread. Doesn't it look good? I let mine bake at 400 degrees for 21 minutes. You can definitely let yours go a little bit longer if you want it to be a little bit more brown on top, but this one looks great to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it out from the loaf pan. You definitely wanna turn it out from your loaf pan immediately. Here we go. Ooh, it's hot. Oh, look at this loaf of bread. I love the cornmeal on it. I think that just makes it that much more like an English muffin. But there it is. It looks fantastic. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put this on a cooling rack. I usually don't do that, but I do like that texture for my English muffin bread. I like it to be a little bit more crispy than super soft all around. So I'm gonna let this cool just for a little bit and then we'll cut into it and check out the inside. I got busy as our English muffin bread was cooling, so after it totally cooled, I stuck it in one of my beeswax bread bags. And that works fine because with my English muffin bread, this is one of the few breads that I like to totally let cool. I don't usually slice this one while it's still warm like I do so many of my other ones, but I do like this one to totally cool, and then I like it best toasted. So let's go ahead and cut into this English muffin bread and check it out. Oh, it smells so good. And I just love the cornmeal on this bread. There we go. It's nice and soft. Let's cut another piece and see the inside a little bit better. There it is. Can you see all those nooks and crannies? Exactly what you want an English muffin to look like, and especially English muffin bread. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and toast this piece and I'll show it to you toasted. All right, y'all, I toasted up a slice and then I slathered it with some butter and some preserves, and then I realized you couldn't see the nooks and crannies quite as well once I covered them up with all those preserves, but they are there and they are absolutely beautiful. I already ate a slice because it was so good and it was just calling my name, but I'm gonna take another little bite. I'm gonna leave the printable recipe for this English muffin bread down in the description. Make it and let me know how much you love it because I know you're really gonna like this one. Thanks so much for being here with me on Robin on the Farm. I'll see you next time.
Robin's in the kitchen, dough beneath her hands, wheat from the fields and eggs from her land. Sunlight through the window, a warm golden glow. She's working hard to make that dough. With flour on her apron, loving each knead, ground wheat fresh, sowing her seed. The smell of fresh bread rises in the air. Simple life